Hello, and welcome to the Tyke Holiday APIM Extravaganza.
Hi, Claire.
Hi, Zoe.
Thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, we want to learn a little bit more about women in APIs and making the case for diversity, equity, and inclusion in the tech industry. So welcome. We're delighted to have you here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm just going to set the no problem. Sorry, we've got a slight delay there, so I will get used to it. But just to set the scene, studies show that teams that have a more equitable gender balance are generally more creative, more resilient to change, and more financially successful, and also have a higher engagement. So despite this, though, when we take a look at developer surveys like Stack Overflow 2022, the latest survey, 92 respondents are still identified as being male, 5% identify as being female, 1.7% identify as being either non-binary, genderqueer, or gender non-conforming. And on the race and ethnicity side of things, 40% of respondents identify as being white and 30% identify as being European. So on the race and ethnicity side of things, the numbers kind of go downhill from there. And that's kind of the state of play. But many of us in the industry are actually working hard to change that. And therefore, we'd love to talk to you about women in APIs. And perhaps you can start a little bit with, tell us a bit more about women in APIs, what it's all about, what the mission is, and what led you to get involved.
Thank you, Zoe. So the Women in APIs community, which I'm privileged to co-lead with a colleague, Uri from API Days. I run my own consulting business here in the UK, but we set up the Women in APIs community formally it was about 3 years ago, and I got involved just before the start of the pandemic, in fact. The history for the conference organisers was that 10 years ago or so, they started out as meetups on API topics. 100% of the attendees identified as male, and everybody was a developer. The makeup of attendees and the interest in APIs has changed enormously since that time. And thankfully also the percentage of speakers and now a higher increasing number of attendees has moved to be more mixed. But the gender balance is still not there. We believe that the research shows that if more women participate in conferences, that they will be able to take knowledge back to their teams, to their businesses, to help solve problems better, to be able to encourage other diversity, and they will be more likely to attend if they see more people that are like them presenting in paneling, moderating, etc. So we set up the community to help people be seen and heard in the public domain. So provide people with the skills and confidence to speak and write in public more confidently. We had about 30 names on a list and used to do a kind of a lunch at the side of conferences before the pandemic. We now have more than 380 members in more than 40 countries, and we're very proud of all the volunteer work that has gone into making that happen.
Fantastic. I mean, that sounds like a really positive way to enact change. And I love the way that you guys, Women in APIs, are actually starting with empowering the individual and driving change that way. And certainly it seems very positive in terms of actually there's some individual benefit in terms of building confidence, getting people out there, interacting with the community, learning, as well as changing that balance within the industry. And I can certainly talk to that, which is, I've kind of come through the industry. I started as a developer. I am where I am now, which is product marketing, but certainly my journey hasn't seen very many people at any levels of organizations, as well as in terms of senior positions. And so, it's always very encouraging to have people that look like you, that come from the same background, same cultures, and that really has been absent. So I'm really glad to have a group like Women in APIs that's working on changing that.
It's great, and it's important to hear individual stories. But for yourself, I'm curious how has getting into public speaking helped you? How did you get involved? How has it helped you in your career? It'd be great to hear.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. It's not really a path that I necessarily thought I was going to choose, and I think that's the case for everybody. But basically, back in a former life, I was an e-government manager working on managing the app's integration, front end, and user experience delivery of online services for multiple local authorities in London. And I was responsible for the delivery of over 200 government services online, and the programme, in terms of its results, were nationally recognised for achieving excellence in the delivery of effective, evolving system-centric e-government services. And by extension, it was kind of held up as being a beacon of best practice. So following on from that, I was actually asked to share the achievements of the programme and the best practices with other web managers, other application architects, and just share how we put that programme together, and the wins, the losses, and everything. That's how I got into public speaking. And to actually knowledge share is what actually got me moving in that direction. But in terms of the impact of public speaking on myself, it's really helped build my confidence, but it also gave me an opportunity to engage with the developer community, the web manager community at the time. And as I've gone through my career, it's a key part of actually feeling part of something. Being part of a community gives me the opportunity to network and meet others in my space. Sometimes it's a bit of a support group as well, but primarily it's given me a platform to share my knowledge, experience, and passion, and also to learn from others.
It's great, and I love your story, which is actually something that we find a lot of our members need help and encouragement with. Many of them start out saying, well, who would be interested in what I might have to say? And they don't necessarily even want to put themselves forward to speak. There are many, many opportunities there. The conference organisers, for example, are really keen to be able to involve more people. So there's many opportunities to speak. They just don't think they have something to say. But your example in that e-government piece was talking about a team, it sounded like, very much. And we find that a lot of women are more comfortable talking about the team, showcasing, if you like, the talents of the people around them. They find that a much easier place to start from. And when we actually talk about, well, that, as a team participant or as a team leader, one of your responsibilities is to make sure that the team's success is understood, and people know what a great job they're doing. And that can often be a great way of getting people started. And we find we do a lot of that. It's about just sometimes giving people the nudge. They've got it all there, and so we create environments in which they can get access to mentors, that they can, in a small, safe format of half a dozen people, they can talk about what holds them back, what they would, how to find something that somebody be interested to speak in, taking the courage, putting in the time, because it does involve time, carving that time out of their day, and seeing it as an investment in their professional development, as opposed to perhaps something that they're kind of obligated to do and they're naturally very uncomfortable with. And we've found the virtual cheer squad, the community side of it, has been fantastic, particularly through a period where initially everybody was remote, and now still so much of work is remote. People need to feel that connection, like we're doing here today, in this remote world that we all live in now.
And I'm interested in what, can you identify some of the benefits of people getting involved with programs like Women in APIs? There's also countless other ones there, crossing gender and ethnic groups, and groups where, LGBT groups, but all the common element is people in tech, but that are underrepresented. But what are the benefits of joining in with groups like Women in APIs, Women Who Code, Black Girls Code, and lots of others, in terms of what they can take back to their own roles within their jobs, their networks, and their communities?
I mean, it's a really important point. And as you say, Zoe, there are fantastic numbers of organizations, of people putting in time or investment or resources to actually make these types of change happening. And I think there's, of course, different ways that you can be involved. You can sign up as a member and join events and get to connect. If you like, be a sort of a consumer of one of these community services or these organizations, or you can get involved and volunteer yourself. And many people find that actually finding a place in their, within their organization or as a representative on these communities, it's a great way for them to be able to talk about something that they might feel strongly about, to share their lived experiences in a way that their colleagues can understand. I would, however, say that there's always a little bit of word of caution on this piece. I mean, fortunately, the research, I think, is becoming more visible to the fact that a lot of people are putting this time in to do this work, and it's not necessarily acknowledged by their peers in their organisation or their managers as actually really important work. It's sometimes referred to as non-promotable tasks. Unfortunately, often some of these non-promotable tasks about promoting diversity, equity, inclusion types of activities and agendas is not seen as real work. But for businesses, it's really important to have a diverse workforce. They'll make better decisions. It's a better place for people to come to work. It will attract and retain more talent when people understand the commercial, the economic, the social responsibility. They can then see that anybody in their team who is putting time into work and support these communities gets more than just being a member. They actually can, help encourage the environment of work. So it's really good stuff. Allies are really important. Get involved.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, actually. And it's actually one of the key drivers at TIGE. And recently I had an opportunity to actually get together in a remote retreat with most of my fellow TIGElings. And it was absolutely amazing, but also inspiring, that one of the key reasons that people are attracted to TIGE, and one of the considerations, because let's face it, when you're going for a job, it's a two-way fit, right? And one of the considerations from many candidates at TIGE is actually looking at the existing workforce and the diversity, but not just the diversity as it is today, but also what the company values are and philosophies are, to make sure that, right from the inception of what kind of culture the company is trying to build is actually quite inclusive. And what was really moving recently was hearing from, we had TIGElings flying into one location from 33 different countries. And it was a real joy to be part of that and to see how the company's doing in terms of that journey towards diversity inclusion. And also that people felt that the company was generally a safe space and a positive place that was really made more positive by its cultural, ethnic, and also sexuality diversity, so identification diversity. So that was really good to see, and I think it's important to make that point, that people do look for that when they are looking at companies. They are looking to see people like themselves, and they're looking to see not just tick box diversity, but actually really what the company is about and what it aspires to be. And then obviously once you get on the inside, it's about making sure that it lives up to that aspiration.
And I think,
So
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry, go
just
ahead.
going to say it's great to hear that whole culture in the organisation of getting behind this, this important change issue, if you like. And we find we've got increasing number of male allies who are members of our community. We think it's an everybody conversation. People who are actually joining in to find out what more they can do to help their colleagues who identify as female, to help their organisations understand how to make a difference. So great to hear that you're doing that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the other point is that from an engineering and a development point of view, again, it's very important to have diverse teams that are engineering both technically, but also the user experience of and how, you know, the diversity of how people interact with technology, on what platforms, and accessibility also is part of this picture, so that we are developing technologies for people that may well interact with them in ways that are different from the way you and I would. So I think, you know, having a diverse engineering and product team really, really helps with that, as it does in marketing as well. It's about trying to drive usage of products in a way that actually really appeals to that person and appeals to their personal situation and their jobs to be done, so that you know, I've certainly seen advertising that looks very off-putting and non-inclusive in its essence, and that really puts me off really using products and services that actually take that kind of approach, because I'm assuming it comes from the inside out and is then projecting. So that I think companies that actually work to not do that, and to actually really, you know, there are business benefits of actually being a lot more inclusive and diverse in the way that you go to market with your products and services as well. So I think all of that is driven from the inside out, and is another reason why it's important to really land on building diverse teams.
Yeah, and I think if you look at APIs as I think what now used by something like 97% of the developers around the world or something like that, we see more and more that organizations that are really getting behind APIs as products, for example, recognize that the sorts of opportunities that those APIs are presenting actually calls for very device thinking, because they're using them to collaborate beyond the boundaries of traditional enterprises. They're using them to embed or be embedded. And all of this requires teams around that API product thinking that have a very different outlook. And the best way you can get different ways of solving problems is by having as diverse a group as possible, thinking and collaborating and creating differently. So
100%.
it's one
Yeah.
of the reasons why there's a really nice synergy in what we do.
Absolutely. And let's finish off with, we actually have API Days in Paris next week as a conference. I know that Women in APIs will be present. Would you like to just give a quick overview of what there is for people to join in with at Women in APIs at API Days Paris?
Yes, so the information's all on the website, apidays.global. So the conference organisers there put up the agenda. It's some of Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday next week. And on the Friday, we are doing a Women in APIs panel around attracting API talent, what the next 10 years could look like. And we've also got a networking and roundtable lunch on the Friday. You can sign up for the lunch on a separate Eventbrite, but register for API Days Global to join the conference. We'd love to see you there. You can also see on the API Days Global website initiatives. You can join our community. If you're not going to be able to join us in Paris next week, please join someone in one of our other 40 countries, where there will no doubt be some other members of the community that you can make friends with. We look forward to having you there.
Fantastic. Well, I really look forward to joining you all there. And you know, I'd really like to say thank you so much for being with us on the API management extravaganza. We really appreciate hearing from you, learning from you, and actually learning a lot more about women in APIs. So thank you so much, Claire. And with that, I'd just like to kick it back to Buddha. Buddha, if you're out there in the ether, time to kick it.
Thank you very much for having me.